Welcome to Project HeadCanon. This is the 14th video of the Content Crosshair series, in which we take an in-depth look at specific pieces of Star Wars media to determine their canonicity within the project. In this video, we are aggregating all of the comics from the Droids franchise. There are 3 series, each published by a different publisher: MyComyc, Marvel, and Dark Horse. We'll start with the MyComyc ones, since they're the easiest to deal with. These were originally published in Spanish, but I found translated copies on a website called StarWarsTimeline.net. They're set in between and even during episodes of the Droids TV show, which helped make the cutting process in the last video an absolute pain. They do add some original characters and plot points that aren't covered in the show, but their overall story footprint is tiny. Each comic is 2 pages long, and there are only 7 of them in total. What you're seeing on screen right now is literally all of them. Even Wikipedia designates them as ambiguously canon, so I think it makes sense for them to share the show's fate and get cut entirely. The Marvel Comics series came out in 1986 and contains 8 issues. Issues 6, 7, and 8 form a story called Star Wars According to the Droids, which basically retells A New Hope from the droids' perspective, with a bit of artistic license and some extra little adventures thrown in where the film has skips or scenes that don't depict the droids. These cause way too many contradictions to be worth trying to keep, so they're getting cut without much consideration. The remaining issues all take place in 15 BBY, before the events of the Droids TV show, but after the droids were separated from Ramus Antilles. Issue number 4 is the infamous time travel story that crosses over with the Ewoks franchise. In general, I'm pretty leery of time travel plots in Star Wars to begin with, since they tend to break everything that comes near them. This story is no exception, not to mention the fact that I've already cut nearly the entire Ewoks franchise. It's getting cut. Issue number 2 features the From Gang as antagonists, which again helped make the cutting process in the last video an absolute pain. Giving the show a clean break means cutting it entirely too. I gave a bit more attention to the remaining issues, 1, 3, and 5. Unfortunately, looking at them as objectively as possible, their storytelling is just kind of bad. Perhaps I don't have an appreciation for comics as a storytelling medium, but I can list several other Star Wars comics offhand that blow these out of the water. So yeah, I'll make a clean job of it and cut them all too. The Dark Horse comics were released in 1994 and 1995 and comprise 3 series. The first series is called the Kalarba Adventures. The duo are somehow under the ownership of Baron Pideres, a noble starship designer on the planet Kalarba, and his son Nak. The issues are pretty self-contained, with plots including corporate espionage, a gang of chefs turned pirates, a 3PO lookalike assassin droid, some rock monsters, and an illegal weapons manufacturer. The entire series is contained on the planet Kalarba and its moons Indobak and Hosk Station. The second series is called Rebellion. The duo chases the previous series antagonist Olag Grek to Nar Shaddaa, where they get imprisoned by Grek's former pilot Jace Forno, escape, and get separated. C-3PO starts a droid rebellion on a transport barge, leads them to a confrontation with Boonda the Hutt, a cybernetically transplanted Movo Bratican, Jace Forno, and Olag Grek. The duo reunites and gets a new job. The third series is called Season of Revolt. Now working for an Ithorian, the duo fails to prevent an old man with permanent drug-induced brain damage from being kidnapped and enslaved by Targonians. The duo joins up with a rival Targonian faction and rescues him. Unfortunately, the Ithorian wants to use a stockpile of the same drug to destroy the minds of a lot more people, so the duo destroys the stockpile right as the angry Targonians are about to capture it. There's also a one-shot called the Protocol Offensive. The duo is now somehow involved in the diplomacy between the Troobs and the Hobors on the planet Talbur. A Tianese man named Jake Harthan tries to sabotage the talks and get the 2 sides to wipe each other out, but the duo puts a stop to his plan by tricking him into confessing in front of everyone. The Dark Horse comics are a bit of a step up from the Marvel ones in terms of overall quality. However, they do introduce a few problems. For one, having all that material crammed into a single half-year, 5.5 BBY, seems like a bit of a stretch. the stories themselves are fine, but it's mainly the fact that they're all connected by the presence of R2-D2 and C-3PO that makes them feel a bit off in the first place. As I've said before, it makes sense from an out-of-universe perspective to have familiar characters that the audience can use as a frame for these unique stories. But from an in-universe perspective, you just end up with the same few characters showing up all over the place and getting involved in a disproportionate number of high-stakes adventures. So I'll give these a canonicity value of 0.1, but I'll cut everything in them that's not corroborated by another source. That means we end up keeping a lot of the planets and locations, but not much else. Oh, and before I forget, there's technically this one-page promotional comic for Kellogg's Apple Jacks cereal. It contradicts A New Hope, so I cut it. And that's all for this video. This was a fairly easy cutting process. Of all the Droids comics, I left only a few non-plot related details from the Dark Horse comics intact, but pretty much everything that happened to R2 and 3PO themselves has been cut. You can probably see now where this is headed in regards to the whole Droids franchise, but there are still a few other pieces that we haven't covered yet. For those, stay tuned for the next content Crosshair. Until then, may the Force be with you.